Thank you very much, Ian. Yes, good afternoon and welcome to Lunchtime Live with me, Ros Astengo. Thank you very much for joining me today. On Monday, restaurants will reopen fully after 11 weeks, but it will be a different experience for staff and diners as Gibraltar unlocks and measures are put in place to prevent the spread of COVID-19. So how challenging will that be for the eating establishments? How sustainable are these measures? And what is the future for the hospitality industry? Well, I'm joined in the studio by two guests now, socially distanced, of course. We have the Minister for Business, Tourism and Transport, Vijay Daryanani, and also the Vice President of the newly formed Gibraltar Catering Association and a restaurateur himself, Orlando Yeats. Gentlemen, welcome.
Good afternoon, Rob.
If I can start with you, first of all, Orlando, before we look more closely at Monday's reopening, restaurateurs like yourself have come together to form this Gibraltar Catering Association. Some 60 establishments, I understand, have already joined the group. Can you tell me, how is the industry feeling at this moment and what's the aim of your group?
Okay, yeah. Well, it's been a hugely troubling time for the industry. The catalyst of the group was definitely COVID. Members of the association have been talking previously as kind of we've all had relationships and known each other. We felt we needed a stronger voice. We decided to form this association. I think within 2 weeks we already have about 60 members. Different people are joining every day. And we feel that the bigger the amount of people that we get for us, the bigger voice that we will have and the bigger influence. And it's definitely a time that the restaurant industry has their own voice. And we will be looking to have some improvements for the industry widespread.
Well, we'll talk about those a little bit later on. Minister Daryanani, can you tell me, the government has stepped in with its Beat COVID measures. Looking back, tell us, how else have you been supporting the industry? Have you been engaging regularly with them, for example?
Well, I think, as Orlando said, this is a new association, so we haven't really engaged with them yet. We've received a letter from them wanting to engage with us, and we will be doing that very soon. But for the rest of the measures, the measures are very well known. When COVID started, the first thing that we did was offer measures for the businesses themselves. So we waived rates for the first quarter. We recommended to private landlords that they charge 50% of the rent that they were charging at that time. Government waived rents, and we waived PAYE and social insurance also. So we've had a very good package of measures that we put forward to the businesses.
Okay, well, Monday is the big reopening day after 11 weeks. And I'm just going to read an extract from the Unlock the Rock document, because these are the measures now that you will have to abide by. So all restaurants will be required to operate on a maximum of 50% occupancy, depending on the layout and public health advice, in order to be able to create appropriate social distancing between patrons. All members of staff will be required to wear masks, and every time a table changes, tables, chairs and menus have to be disinfected. And each table will consist of no more than 6 people and will be spaced 1 to 2 metres apart. Restaurants will initially be permitted to operate by reservation only in order to limit the numbers of persons accumulating in waiting areas and to prevent people from going out without a reservation. So let me just put it to you, Orlando. What do you think of these measures? How's it going to affect the industry?
Well, it's going to affect us greatly. First of all, I think most people that are wanting to open on Monday have engaged with the environmental agency and either have had a visit or they will have a visit. As far as putting the protocols in place, that's been quite easy. But it's the after effect that's worrying to us. I mean, there's no problem putting sanitizers and buying hand masks and putting signs up. But a lot of the industry are very nervous about what's coming next. 50% capacity means 50% trade. Also, for smaller venues, we also depend on standing trade for things like football matches, other places do live music, that kind of thing. So that's completely gone. So if you were to talk about percentages, 50% seating capacity does not even mean 50% revenue, because you're very limited towards that. So those are the things that we've had to tackle. And we, as I said before, we worked with the environmental agency. They've been very cooperative. We've had to put in table plans and things like that.
Let's just talk about this 50% capacity, because for smaller restaurants, certainly it's going to be very challenging.
Sure.
The ones with outdoor terraces will have the advantage of having more space. Now, we know that, for example, restaurants along Chatham Counterguard have been gifted, perhaps is the right word, the use of the road so that they can increase their terrace areas. Minister Daryanani, the Chief Minister, mooted a couple of weeks ago that he would consider other areas as well. Has any thought been given, for example, to Main Street or to Casemates or to Irish Town, other areas in Gibraltar, so that they too can benefit from larger terrace spaces?
Absolutely. I mean, this is not only about helping Chatham. Chatham was perhaps easier to do because the space is there, and we've had plans of wanting to partly pedestrianize the area. So it sort of all fell into place, and like I said, is the first one that we tackled. But yes, I mean, Casemates. I'm looking at Casemates. I've had plans before COVID on how I want to improve the situation in Casemates. I went for a walk up Irish Town on Saturday to see for myself how I could help the restaurants on that street, because there's a possibility of allowing more tables and chairs outside and actually creating a really nice atmosphere. So we're looking at all possibilities.
Okay, so we can maybe expect an announcement. When do you think?
Well, I mean, I'm not going to commit to an announcement here, but yes, I mean, during the course
Soon.
of June, during
Yeah.
the course of I mean, look, I think one of the most important things here is that, look, this is a totally new situation. So when we open on the 1st of June, we'll see certain things that we perhaps haven't thought of, but when we open, we will have a comeback from the restaurants, and look. We have proved that we're here to help business, and we're not going to stop now.
And we'll talk more about measures in a moment. I'd like to ask you, Orlando, please, if I may, about the whole social distancing. How is that going to work? For example, you've got waiters who have to visit multiple tables. You've got toilet areas, for example. Do you think it's feasible?
Well, we have to realise the reality of the world that we live in, that people walk around and they stop and chat to their friends and go and visit other tables and stuff like that. So there's a certain amount of enforcement that we are capable of. As for we are doing everything that we can as an association and the rest of the members to follow the government guidelines. We are the social distancing of 2 meters between each table, 1 meters between the chairs, the amount of sanitizers we have to put in. It's going to increase the workload. We might even need extra staff to clean all the menus after service and tables and chairs, and all that operating on lesser revenue. I can safely say that quite a few of the people that I speak to are going to open as an experiment, and they're going to be open for a couple of weeks. And if they don't see it's cost effective, they'll shut down straight away, because we're not in this business to lose money.
Okay, well, I'll pick up on that point with the Minister in a moment. But first of all, on the social distancing, the sanitising, how does the government propose to monitor all of that?
Well, that will be monitored by the environmental agency. We've given them guidelines, and I know that we've spoken to the chamber and the federation, who represent a lot of bars and restaurants in Gibraltar, and it's been made clear to us that they're going to follow the guidelines. And I think what I said earlier, we will see when we actually start, and we will take on board any changes that they think that will improve the situation.
Well, Orlando just mentioned that some restaurants might find themselves closing because it's just not feasible. So whilst the lockdown was in place, the full lockdown was in place, the government said that nobody would lose their jobs. How long is that going to continue for? What protection will there be for staff who do end up losing their jobs because this 50% capacity is just not sustainable for their business? Their margins are thin enough as it is, and they can't proceed. Any protection there for staff?
Look, I mean, we have, as I said, we've introduced these beat measures for the months of April, May and June, and we've said that we will review the situation after that period. And that is exactly what we're doing. We have a CELAC meeting this afternoon at 3:00 at number 6 Common Place, and one of the issues on the table is exactly that, on how to protect jobs. Unfortunately, the government cannot protect every job, But people have to realise that for the first time ever, a government Gibraltar has been paying people's wages. So I think we need to look at this with calm minds and see that the government has done excellent work on trying to protect jobs and business. And when all this is over, people will look back and see that everyone has been treated with great compassion.
Can I just ask one very quick question? Because obviously I asked you earlier on about the terrace areas, but of course a lot of restaurants have private landlords. Is there going to be any engagement with private landlords and getting them to sort of work together with you to
Yes.
help businesses?
I mean, look, when this first happened in March, we recommended to landlords that they provide this 50%, reduction on the rents that they were charging, and from what I hear, mostly everyone has done so, except for the odd one here and there. But mostly everyone has done so, and we're grateful for that, because that is their tenant. If they don't have a tenant, their premises isn't worth anything. So these are all the things that that landlords have to take into account. But at the moment, we're working on a measure with these private landlords where the latter have come to us with ideas on how to assist those who really need assistance. So
Okay.
it's something that we're working on.
Okay, so let's talk about some of the assistance that's on the table. For example, it was announced that this week that the government has launched this £30 million loan scheme for businesses, commercial rates, but the government will secure 80% of the loan, I believe, and that's intended to help businesses that might struggle going forward. Orlando, can you tell us, what are your thoughts about that?
I think it's a great initiative. I think that it's great for some of the business owners to have this at their disposal. Hopefully, we're hoping this is part of a much broader toolkit. But the government also needs to know that a lot of restaurants aren't keen on accruing any more debt. We've lost money these last 3 months. And now we're entering into a very strange summer with no tourists. And I'd like to also remind that we haven't had the best of the last 2 years.
So do you want to be given money then? You don't want to have to borrow it?
I mean, the general feeling is that we'd like to be given some grants. Even opening up on Monday has cost us money with cleaners, PPE equipment, getting extra staff in to help. That's been an extra cost when there's been no income. And we've come off the back of a difficult 2 years. I mean, last year cruise liners were down. This year it was going to pick up, and that hasn't materialised because of COVID. We've had Bet365 leave Gibraltar, which has left a bit of a hole in the catering economy, if you'd like to call it that. And Brexit consumer confidence has been down as well. So it's been a very difficult 2 years compounded by this COVID situation.
Well, let me put it to the Minister. Orlando, the Gibraltar Catering Association are asking for grants. Any chance of that?
Everybody wants free money. I mean, I'm going to be a bit abrupt about this. I'm sorry, but look, it's not like that. This business disruption loan scheme, I think, is a fantastic idea for businesses I think every business wants to come out of this and make a success out of this, and I have no doubt about that. But what we can't forget that all these restaurants or all these any business has had 10 very good years, and now we have 3 bad months, and obviously 3 bad months, but 3 terrible months. And as if it's like that there's no money and there's no there. The government has assisted in the right way in doing things, and we're going to, like I say, this is totally under review. It doesn't mean that we're not going to continue. We're going to cut off everything on the 30th of June. No, we're going to continue supporting business, but we have to be sensible, because the government at the end of the day doesn't have a bottomless pit, and not only that, but we have to look to the future. This is not a short-term thing. This is not about 3 months or 5 months. I mean, of course, the government can just go out and write out a check to everybody. But what happens?
Let's
6
just
months
get
later?
a quick reaction from Orlando before we move
Vijay,
on.
what you need to understand is we were forced to close. This is now this.
We
new,
have been forced to do many things.
Absolutely. I agree with everything you're saying. That I know that the government doesn't have a bottomless pit of money, but I would warn you that if there is no assistance in as far as grants, for businesses to kickstart into the summer. Again, I repeat, the summer with no tourists, and then have a long, hard winter again in front of us. Many businesses depend on the summer that we generate during money to pay back debt.
Okay, let's just talk about the tourism aspect of this, if you don't mind, Minister. You mentioned summer without tourists. Spain has talked about unlocking its tourism in July. So there is can you just answer possibly whether there is any possibility of tourism this summer?
Let me just make one quick point
and
just carry on to that.
Yeah.
Carry on to the tourism part, and that is look. I understand totally how you feel,
Sure.
because that is where I come from. You know, I understand what it is for a businessman, to say that there is no business. I understand that the bills are mounting up, you have to pay, and the situation is dire. I understand that, but we need to at least think that the government is doing everything it can and will continue doing everything it can. So I think that's the first point I'd like to
absolutely.
make.
Well,
Moving on to tourism.
Yep.
Look, I think we need to wait a little bit, unfortunately, because everything seems to change within 24 hours. But yes, Spain have said, Pedro Sanchez has announced that he will be welcoming tourists from the 1st of July to Gibraltar. To Spain. So I take it to mean that there will be movement allowed. So probably by then we'll have tourists coming into Gibraltar.
great news.
But I also think that it won't just happen overnight. But of course, if there are more people coming in than there are at the moment, then obviously everything helps.
And just tell us, how much does your industry rely on tourism? Because you hear some that say it's the local trade really that counts, particularly, when you get the cruise liners in, they don't necessarily eat here, do they?
Yeah, well, it's important, Ros, to realise that there's not a one-size-fits-all for all business. Some businesses are more focused towards local tourism. My business is local general public. My business is more focused at being on a marina
just
for
very
tourists.
Quickly, let me just ask you very quickly, is the rumour true that most restaurants are full now going forward?
From the conversations that I've had with the rest of the committee and the members, the bookings are looking quite good on weekends. I'd say there's a 70%.
Okay.
70% full capacity of the 50%. You need to remember that.
We are unfortunately running out of time, and there is still quite a lot to discuss. If I can just ask you, both of you, starting with Orlando, very quickly, what else do you want from the government to help your industry survive? And we'll give the final word to the minister.
Look, we're very happy with the government, how they've helped us for quarter two. With the help with the employees, that's great. We haven't had to make anyone redundant. The rates, all that kind of thing, and most importantly, the rents. The rents are the most important thing. That's our biggest payout, right? So what the organisation is looking for is a continuation into quarter three, with the rules being the same as we've had in quarter two. I mean, that's the ambition of the association, to help us get through this. And realistically, we need to get to next spring with some assistance to be able to start making money in the summer. Otherwise, I fear that we're going to have many business closing down. Help to next spring. Okay, Minister, a final few words from you.
Look, I think in the midst of a crisis, there's always opportunity. So let's look at it like that. And on the point of assistance, the government has track record over the last 3 months of assisting business. We are going to continue. We will be looking at grants also. So it's not a no. It's something that we will look at. The business disruption loan scheme, I think, is a step in the right direction.
Yes.
It will help people. And I think businesses will have to perhaps put in a little bit of their savings of the monies that they've made in the past to get their businesses going. But the government will be there, will hold their hand for as long as possible. Thank you very much, gentlemen. Orlando Yeats of the Gibraltar Catering Association and Minister Vijay Daryanani, Minister for Tourism, Business and Transport. Thank you very much for listening. It's just coming up to 2. It's back to Ian.